All right, everybody, welcome back to the Brewer Fanatic NLDS Game 5 preview. Tommy's a little bit different this week. Jake is in Europe, and for some reason, Rob Manfred in his infinite wisdom put last night's game at 6 p.m. Pacific to start. So, a little late, but we're doing it now. Jake, you pretty well rested. What time is it over there in the
I'm feeling
EU?
better. I mean, I tried that sort of 6 p.m. Western time, sort of, or Pacific time. Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
One time,
Western.
and I was like, I can't do it again. I can't be going to bed at like 5:30. That doesn't work. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's only 11:15 now. Completely manageable time. I am good. I think I'm less nasally, so kind of happy. How are you doing, Jace?
I'm doing okay. I'm kind of glad we didn't have to talk after the game last night. Mixed bag, but you get more baseball. You get a fifth game. You get a decisive fifth game. Someone's gonna move on. We're gonna have a finally gonna have a decision here. But yeah, definitely a molly whopping, which I think has, both sides have taken a molly whopping at this point. So I think, like we said at the beginning of the series, these are two evenly matched teams. Don't let one game kind of convince you otherwise. That's kind of how parity works in baseball. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. At Wrigley, the Brewers were the nail twice. So hopefully at MFAN things will be different. But before we go any further, Jake, I want to hear your thoughts about whether you think and what sort of advantages you think the Brewers have at home going into AmFam. I know you wrote an article about it, so love to hear more.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'll sort of say it's all very small things. The Brewers all year have sort of made an effort to win around the margins, which works really well over 162. But there's no way of knowing whether you get the opportunities, or more to the point, you take those opportunities. You're talking about a millimeter on the barrel as a difference between a warning track fly ball and a 3-run home run. But look, I do think there's a couple of advantages they have. The Cubs bullpen has been very good so far, but they've primarily in any game they've had a chance in have leaned on Daniel Palencia, Andrew Kittredge, Drew Pomeranz, who's been fantastic, Caleb Thielbar, and Brad Keller. Now, of those guys, Keller and Palencia haven't actually been great. I know Palencia got hit by that 3-run home run. He's pitched 3 1/3 innings and has one strikeout. This is a guy who pitches like 100 miles an hour. I'm going to say the Brewers are putting the ball in play pretty regularly. Similar sort of story with Keller, and overall there hasn't really been that high strikeout stuff outside of Pomeranz, which is weird. Like that does seem to be off the face of the map. So you're looking at that. I'm looking at a team that's been in now 3 elimination games. There's a weird sort of psychological, not a fallacy, but a sort of thought process, basically, that human beings will usually look to get 80% of something done, and they ease off. The big fight for the Cubs is get from 2-0 back to 2-2. And there's probably going to be some form of relaxation of, we're used to this. It doesn't feel as backs to the wall as the Brewers will now feel. Whether that's a positive or negative, time will tell. But the Cubs have done, they've won 3 elimination games so far. Obviously, you're back at your home grounds. That does seem to have been something that both clubs have enjoyed so far. But I think the biggest thing for me is how often they've seen that Cubs bullpen in that order. You know that immediately coming out is going to be Daniel Palencia, and then there's going to be some combination of Thielbar. Kittredge might be safe for the ninth. So you'll have Brad Keller and Pomeranz, basically depending lefties, righties coming up, and then you'll have that to finish. Anyone who starts, they're going to want someone who starts, at least can go 3 innings. Whether they trust out to Colin Ray, who was very good to finish the season, is a bit iffy. Or will they go with Shota and say, let's hope you don't give up a home run in 3 innings? I mean, it could be a long tail. I mean, he's given up 2 per 9. So you're mathematically 67% chance there's a home run at some point. But we will see. So, look, I think there's some things in the Brewers' favor. And finally, TBD is the Brewers' best starter. Like, it just is. You're turning around and saying this is a team whose bullpen has excelled throughout the playoffs. Excelled. After the first inning, they've conceded 2 runs. They've conceded 11 in the first 4 innings. and they've conceded 2 runs after that. Maybe that was the statistic leading up to last night now, but even then, this is a team where they have thrived on strength and depth throughout the year. It's not been one
Right.
star. It's been 5, 6, 7 guys producing consistently 7, 8 out of 10s. I think this suits them, Jason. I don't know. Am I being too optimistic here?
Dude, I feel like we've switched roles. I feel like after the first game, you were like, I don't know, man, and I was like, dude, we're on easy street, and now you're super bullish. I'm closer to the middle. I think like you bring up a lot of good points. It's very strange, maybe coincidental. I don't know what it is that the Cubs have done so much damage in that first inning, like a lot in every game, and then they kind of peter out. I think Milwaukee figures it out. I think the starter conversation is interesting for both teams, right? I think neither team has a clear direction on where they want to go. You already talked about this. The Cubs could try Shota again. He's a cool guy, but Milwaukee did some damage against him when they saw him. He's prone to the home run. That's something that we've known about him since he got signed over from Japan. Is he's prone to the homer. So we'll see if the Brewers can kind of take advantage of that. I have heard Conray is a potential guy to get out there. Like you said, he's been good. He's been good for them. He's just like a very serviceable arm. I know he's not super fancy. He's not throwing like a 104 sinker with 35 miles of arm side run. He doesn't have like a diving curveball, but he gets the job done. And ultimately, in the playoffs, like the more innings that you can get and you keep him scoreless, you keep him to 1 run, like that is a huge value add for the team. I have heard people are saying like maybe they want to use a righty. They've had the most success against righties. I don't know if that's biased because Tyone is the only starter that didn't get shelled at least one point. But you obviously like have some decisions to make. And then on the Brewers side, the only guy that they had that was like, oh, this guy's gonna lead our rotation. This guy's a cut above the rest was Freddie Peralta. We saw the result of that last night. And so I think they have a lot of options. I think Miz is, if he's not going to get the ball in the first inning, he's probably going to get the most work. They might use an opener again, but Brewers bullpen, man, they've gotten worked pretty hard this past week. So I think Miz is the only one that hasn't pitched since Monday. He had the 3-inning outing. So yeah, pitcher workload is something to consider. Handedness is something to consider. Like, man, those Cubs lefties do some damage. We saw that yesterday. But yeah, there's a lot of things to consider just in deciding who you want to take the ball to start things off.
Yeah, 100%. And who do you think is, because there's loads of names thrown out in the Brewers end. So we've seen Quintana thrown out as maybe if you Ashby threw 40 odd pitches. Now
30 pitches.
Yeah. So to Pat Murphy's eyes, Aaron Ashby is the freshest he's ever been in his life. So he's still a potential as well. But who would you sort of see leading off and trying to set the tone? Do you go experience? Do you go youth and stuff? Like what would be the Jason Wang approach to this?
My approach would be to pay off the Cubs to lose, to take a dive. That's an old boxing trick. But I think you're right. I know Matt Truba wrote a piece exactly about this exact question on Brewer Fanatic this morning, which was like, what are some things how could they handle the pitching situation? And his dark horse candidate was trot out Abner Uribe first inning because he also hasn't pitched much. He only threw 13 pitches on Monday, and that's all the work he's really gotten. And you and I both know Uribe is capable of some wicked stuff. And then Miz still kind of getting the bulk of it. So you got two power righties essentially with some just wicked velocity. I think other than that, because of the workload that we talked about before, Ashby threw 30 pitches yesterday. Gasser threw almost 50 pitches yesterday.
Yeah.
Guys like Chad Patrick has had a long outing. Like Grant Anderson threw 30 pitches on Wednesday. Jared Koenig hasn't thrown that many pitches, but the pitches he has thrown, suspect. Little shaky bakey. So it's not like a guy that you're clamoring to get on the mound as soon as possible. But if I had to pick, I think Miz is going to get the start. I think that he has a lot of intangible potentials. Like I think if Miz goes 3-4 innings and he gets super excited, he gets super fired up, I have a feeling that will kind of help the morale of the rest of the team. I think it's I would imagine it's kind of not at a great spot right now. You lost 2 in Wrigley and you got blanked yesterday, kind of laid an egg. And if you see your young 21-year-old superstar 6'7" phenom who weighs 100 pounds somehow and throws 105, doing it like he does, I would get fired up. I get fired up at home. So I'd love to see him play an integral role in this game 5, and it could be honestly like a legacy defining moment for him.
And look, my cousin was actually at the game, and the first thing he mentioned was this was game 2. Was when Miz came out, he said the whole place just felt electric. He saw 103, 104, for the first 4 pitches, and he just was like, "Oh my gosh, he's just a blur. You couldn't see the ball." And that sort of electricity, like you said, you can. It sets a tone. The worry is, would you want to give the Cubs 3 hours of notice? Here's when you're facing him and you're probably getting him the bulk. Or would they rather go with an opener who's going to at least maybe set the tone a little bit in terms of, I've been here before. I know what I'm doing, and you can pull them. And that's partially why I'd maybe lean towards a Quintana, in that, look, if there's no chase, nobody's going off the plate at all, he's nibbling a little too much, you can pull him. He might get 1 out and leave 2 on, and you can pull him. You don't need to try and get 5-6 innings out of him, but he's been there and done it. He knows what he's about. He's not going to change, and I think he's that kind of bulldog that will not set the tone a little bit, but at least he's not going to be overawed by the occasion. And then if you take a lefty whose fastball is 89 and then say, here's a right-hander throwing 104 in the following inning, that inning's a wash. There's not a chance you can switch between those two. There's 15 miles an hour difference there.
Yeah.
No. So I actually think those two following each other could be an interesting path. But, you maybe could name 8, 9, 10 arms. So whether you need true bulk innings of 3-4 innings from anybody, or you're actually just looking for 1, maybe 2 innings from a couple of guys, and then just like next man off the rank, let's go, son, will be really fascinating from the Brewers. And they certainly have more options in that context than the Cubs do, who will be very low to go towards like a Ben Brown, who, when he's good, has been dominant, but has also been absolutely shelled when his curveball is out of the zone. Like, people just sit in that fastball and it just doesn't move enough. It just doesn't move. Yeah. Aaron Savali is he's not really someone, though there would be some comedy at least in Aaron Savali pitching against the Brewers in an elimination game in the NLDS, having been canned for Andrew Vaughn. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many options, and I think that's partly what makes this all so fascinating. Like, dude, is this not just exciting? Is this not what we get up for sport for?
Yeah, dude, this is like technical baseball, right? There's a lot to be romantic about when it comes to the game, and there's a lot of stuff that's high level qualitative. Like, again, if you're at the game live and you see Miz throwing 104, you're probably not worrying too much that it's like super off the plate, their waist pitch. You're probably just thinking like, wow, this is like cool energy. Let's take part in it. And I think what's unique about the series is it has both elements. Like, both teams are very evenly matched. Both have their advantages, disadvantages. There's a lot of personal drama. Like, Colin Ray was a Brewer. Like you said, Savali was a Brewer. Craig Counsell, again, they keep panning to this guy in the dugout anytime anything happens. And there's just like so much to unpack with this series in any way that you want to take a look at it. And I think that's what makes it exciting. I think you're right. I think, especially because they have 2 big lefties in that lineup to start off, right? You got Bush and you got Tucker. Tucker finally got into one yesterday. We've been waiting. I mean, I'm not a coach now. I've been waiting for Kyle Tucker to come back.
I have not, Jason. I have said stay injured.
Yeah, no, man. That's that murderous row that we were talking about in terms of the lineup, and it's a dangerous one. Which leads me to my next question, right? Which is like, what mistakes do you think the team made in the past 2 games that they cannot afford to make in this final game?
If they're going to beat you, make them beat you. You can't. So I think the big one that I saw yesterday, so I woke up at like 2:10 and watched like the first hour and a half of the game, which was probably stupid. But so you have Peralta. He actually dominated Michael Bush. Nico Horner squibbed one through the left side. Bit of BABIP luck. It happens. You cannot then walk Kyle Tucker on 4 pitches. Not with the way that guy's been swinging the bat. you just can't. So it's limiting the free passes, saying, look, you're going to hit on base, go for it. Because even if you're doing so, like, this is going to be a game where it depends on, did you hit your home run with, especially if it's tight, if you hit your home run with men on base, you get lucky with the sequencing. Do the hits fall kind of when you need them to? Do you get that fortune? And like, I'll say this to anybody, the Colorado Rockies could beat the Chicago Cubs tomorrow if they threw Bradley Blaylock at his 8 ERA on the mound. Like, baseball is weird. Everybody wins games. Everybody loses games. When you put it down to one, anybody can beat anybody. So as much as it's really fun to go into the technical side and what was missed and what wasn't, like, at the end of the day, this is just going to be a game of baseball that gives massive bragging rights, but actually has, like, outside of the pitch-to-pitch control, the Brewers or the Cubs could be roping 110-mile-an-hour line drives and fly balls and find them, well, maybe not fly balls, but line drives, and they just get caught at the warning track. Or, you'll just rope something 115 off the ground and it's straight to an infielder, double play. Like, this stuff can and will happen, but it's dealing with that top of the order. Like, Nico Horner has been on a charge. I think Bush has been brilliant at the top of the order, but I think Nico Horner has been just as impressive. And he's just a consistent thorn on the base paths. So there's that, and then don't let it slide. And I think Game 3 was the perfect example of that, Jason, when you saw Priester was taken off the mound after PCA managed to single through the right side. And again, sometimes they land, sometimes they don't. But the next time you got a man on third, new pitcher on, and second pitch in, you get slightly unlucky because William Contreras getting up to actually make a throw to second base. But even then, that pitch was just so wide, and you just can't afford those sorts of mistakes. So you've got to stay tight, make them earn it, make them work, and you've got to grind those ABs. Keep putting those balls in play, look for something to do damage, and get after it, lads. This is what you've dreamed your entire lives for. You sit there in the middle of your backyard, and you think, it'd be really cool to be an elimination game, dreaming of like a home run over the right field wall to win it.
Yeah,
this is what it's for.
I totally agree with you on the command thing. Like, look, all credit to the Cubs lineup. Like, we've talked a lot ad nauseum about how great they've been and how many threats they have. But I think if you look at this game, I think a lot of it is the Brewers kind of beating themselves at times by getting into bad counts, right? Like, when you're in a 3-0, 3-1 count, like, as a pitcher, like, the OPS difference between the 1-1 conversion from 1-2 to 2-1 is miles apart, right? And that should, in and of itself, kind of tell you, like, getting behind as a pitcher is not where you want to be, especially against guys that will take advantage of that and punish you. Like, Tucker is more than willing to take a free pass if he does not have to do anything, right? He's not a guy that's, like, going to swing out of his shoes just because he got 3-0 green light. Like, 4-pitch walk, he'll take all day because it's another runner on base. It's another possible RBI for the next guy. And when they do pitch, and I think a lot of this is, like, this is why we're kind of starting to see, like, the difference in offensive production by the Cubs in the first inning versus the rest is, like, I feel like a lot of the bullpen guys, they're a little bit quicker to dial it in, and they're like, okay, you know what, like, we're in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, no more games, it's time to pitch. Here is, like, heaters top of the zone at the letters, here's dirty breaking balls dropping off the table at the bottom. We're going to attack you, and we're going to make you, like you said, earn it, rather than kind of like, oh no, I got to groove a fastball down the middle, Rich Hill style, because that's all I got, and I put myself in the situation. How did we get here type of stuff. And, like, a lot of the misses have been big, and they end up costing the game. In Game 3, it was Quinn Priester and Nick Mears all over the place. Yesterday, Freddie Peralta really kind of lost feel for his changeup, I think it was. That was a big factor that kind of set them back. And, momentum is a big thing too. Even if they only score, only in quotes, 2-3 runs as a result of this, like, if that's to start the game and you're already working from behind the whole time, like, that's a major inflection point as well if you're not careful.
Funny you mentioned momentum. There's 2 guys going off on my Twitter debating whether momentum is an actual thing right now. It's quite entertaining to follow, but, like, I'm of the firm belief it doesn't actually matter. From, like, last night's game doesn't affect coming into this game,
right?
But it's going to affect you if you go 3-0 down in the first inning. Like, that's going to hit you, and you'll think, oh crap, here we go again. There will be a dampener. You will get tight, especially with the amount of rookies that the Brewers have. So you would say, and it's maybe super cliche to say, get on the board first. Get on the board, get out of a full inning with a lead, and then go.
Right.
And I think whoever can get that lead, or maybe get a 1 or 2 run lead, sort of approaching the fifth inning, maybe, is really strong position because the back end of these bullpens have been good. There's a chance of the blow-ups, and we saw this last year. When you're seeing a reliever the third time in a series, Emmanuel Clase had like a .6 ERA and started getting absolutely crushed the third
Yeah.
time that they saw him. The Brewers are seeing the likes of Palencia and Kittredge not so much, but the other guys 2-3 times so far in the series. You might see a blow up. Could be the same for the Brewers. Certainly, if you've seen Aaron Ashby like 3 times,
Yeah.
that you're going to get comfortable. But and perhaps we can't take the bullpen as for granted. But I think if you can get that lead and bet it down, especially if you're the Brewers at home, with that crowd can come onto your back, I think that's huge. How they do it, I don't like. Do you have any inklings as to where the offense is going to come from, Jason?
So I was gonna ask you that is like, we spent a lot of time talking about the pitching and like, giving up hard contact, etc. For the hitting approach, I feel like honestly it's probably better than people think. I know that the scoring has been very low. Obviously, we got blanked yesterday, and I think a lot of that is like very difficult for the Brewers to take advantage of runners in scoring position these past few games. They were 2 for 9 in Game 3. In Game 4, they only had 4 instances with runners in scoring position, and it was 0 for 4. Where is the offense actually going to come from? The answer, ideally, and based on the regular season and in the first 2 games that they won, is like could be anywhere. Could be Vaughn, could be Blake Perkins hitting one up the middle. Like things happen, and I think that's the nature of this lineup is such that the goal is for all 9 guys to be somewhat threatening, rather than like, all right, we got the first 4 down, the next 5 are replacement level bats that can't hit the broadside of a barn. But like that lack of power starting to hurt, especially when you're down and you need something big. Like Andrew Vaughn, thank God for him, got us that 3-run homer. But without that and without the ability to kind of turn a game on its head with one swing, Brewers have to work a little bit harder. I mean, they're grinding these at bats out. They're not striking out 10, 15, 30 cajillion times a game. There are a couple players I think definitely need to get going. Bryce Terang is batting 125 with a 176 on base over his 16 at bats. Not great. Caleb Durbin, my guy, batting 143 with a 240 on base over 14 at bats. Doesn't have an extra base hit yet. And then Sal Frelick, like he's been playing great defense. Sal Frelick is a good guy, but he's batting 214 with a 250 on base, over 14 at bats. The rest of the bats hitting pretty well, but those 3 guys are core pieces of what made this team successful this past year over the 162, and they haven't really been able to carry that success over into this postseason just yet.
Yeah, no, I mean you're spot on. It's that depth. You can't get past number 5 and then think, right, we're done. And look, we saw Sal Frelick step up in Game 3 last year and pop a home run. I think he hadn't hit one since like May that year, so nearly had a heart attack watching it. He thought, okay, I'll wake up from the dream now. But no. So look, big moment player. I have a feeling that William Contreras might be going deep. He seems to be that guy that really rises to an occasion and loves the confrontation. But as you said, it's going to come from that sort of depth. You can't be turning around and saying that Durbin isn't hitting, Terang is being a bit of a black hole, and he hasn't actually, bar that double against Matthew Boyd, I actually haven't seen much in terms of hard contact from Terang either, which is more, it's not like it's hard outs that are just not finding gaps or holes. It just hasn't really been there. He's just looked a little bit in between. And that even extends a little bit through September, which is slightly concerning. I think I had a look at it at one point, and pitchers seem to have changed their approach a little bit, and he just hasn't quite adjusted back since that sort of home run barrage. Sal Frelick, it's probably going to come at some point. Like he's good enough. He's going to bat the ball. It's just whether it's quality line drives or is it just little bloopy, infield sort of hits.
Yeah.
Durbin is interesting. Durbin's the one that maybe disappoints me the most so far in some ways, because when you look at the left-handed pitchers he's actually faced, where he's done a lot of his damage this year, he's really seemed to struggle. Even against Matthew Boyd yesterday, he just didn't seem. And now a lot of hitters looked off against Boyd, but I was expecting maybe a little bit more from him so far. But in essence, it doesn't matter if you get a few hits through the infield, you get a squibber. Honestly, do you remember the game where they played against the Pirates against Paul Skeens the first time round, where they scored about 4 earned runs?
Yeah, I
And
think this
there
was
was
the worst start of the year.
yeah, and you looked
Yeah.
at it and you were like, none of this is on him. Like a ball just sneaking past the second baseman twice. O'Neill Cruz didn't fully commit to a dive in center field, just about finding gaps, and then like one hard hit double, and somehow ended up with 4 runs and a ground out. And you're like, what's going on here? But that's maybe what you're looking for from the Brewers. Just a little bit of, okay, there's something happening. Let's get that early hit with a runner in scoring position. Oh, I know I'm talking about fortune a lot here, aren't I? Like, it's just going to be, does it
that's
happen or
baseball.
does it not?
That's baseball, right? That's why guys. I mean, you go on any Twitter game, you go on Twitter after any game, and people are talking about X ERA, X batting average, catch probability, because oftentimes it's very hard to cope with the reality that like some stuff just happens because it happens, right? An outfielder stares into the sun by accident, becomes an inside the park homer, right? Routine plays become errors, and those things can cascade. I mean, the World Series last year, you got Yankees fans still talking about Garrett Cole not covering first base and how that costed the franchise their 20th World Series. Like little things, and that's again, that's the parity of baseball, and that's why all the advantages tend to happen on the margins, and pretty much every game is roughly 50-50, to be honest, right? Um,
Pretty much.
yeah, and so I guess my question for you is, if you were the hitting coach, if you were kind of like designing this, right, would you rather see the Brewers execute in a manner similar to game one, where they're like, hey, we don't really need to put too much air behind this ball. Let's just get guys on base and let's just run around with like our hairs on fire? Or are you like, let's load it up a little bit. Let's get some power bats. Let's look to get these balls into the stands and let's do our damage by the home run. Like, which one would you prefer, and which one do you think this lineup is going to be more successful at?
I mean, what's more likely to come is probably the game one sort of stuff where, I mean, even the power came through in game one. It wasn't home runs, but it was doubles and hard hit doubles.
Mm-hmm.
The game 2-1, I think, so it depends. I think if you're facing the likes of an Imanaga, he doesn't walk people. But the big strikeouts we saw sort of earlier, maybe in his first year and a half, have really dwindled the last few months. He gets good swing and miss still in the fastball because the Brewers are really zoning in sort of his splitter and the slider last time out. But I think if it's him on the mound, I'm looking to dial in on something big. I'm going to have to hit my way on base. You're not going to walk much. And actually, the Cubs are one of the best pitching staffs in baseball for limiting walks.
Right.
So you're going to have to do it yourself. You're not going to get handed the free passes. And at that point, that's when I'm looking for those big hits. And it has to be, look, I'll take what I'm given. If someone's giving you one in the other half, I don't want to see Jackson Chourio trying to pull that over the left field wall. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's maybe an area where he struggled a bit this year, thinking, I'm the guy. This is going horribly. Hit a couple of home runs. I'm not the guy again. But what does Murphy like to say? That home runs are thrown. So if you get those mistakes, you have to be willing to take advantage. You have to have an idea of what's coming, what might be coming next, know where you can do damage, and when you see it, don't miss. But in reality, the way this is going to come is probably the scrappy baseball, and there will be something pretty intriguing about the Brewers winning the way that everybody thinks is the only way they can play, which is, a couple of infield hits, a bloop single, and all of a sudden you've got men in the corners, 1 run scored, no outs, and everybody being like, how do they keep doing it, man? I don't know. What do you think, Jason? How do you think this is going to be like won or lost offensively, defensively? Like, what can you see there?
It's tough with this matchup specifically because on one hand, obviously it's more difficult to hit home runs with this lineup on a consistent basis and depend on that to do your damage. But on the other hand, batted balls, you're giving the Cubs defense more of a chance to be the Cubs defense, which is, one of the better ones that we've seen across the league. And like, yeah, Horner and Swanson made their errors in the first few games, but I mean, they've looked pretty solid ever since. They're keeping a pretty tight clamp on things, especially in the infield. And I think there's trade-offs. There's obviously pros and cons with each approach. I think that the Brewers have found the most success over the season playing their brand of baseball. People in the world of analytics, people tend to think that like analytics downplays the value of like getting on base and like getting singles over power. I don't necessarily think that's true at all, actually. And I think that we have recent examples of teams finding a lot of success, like the D-backs in 23 were not some like crazy home run team. They just like played kind of crazy, similar to the Brewers. And I think that there's a lot of potential for that, especially with this lineup. You got fast guys, you got hard nosed guys, you get guys that don't hit the ball hard but hit it often. Like you have a lot of guys on this lineup, like Frelick and Durbin, who have low whiff rates and low strikeout rates, and they're just looking to get back to ball. So I think we saw that successful recipe in game one. Hopefully they'll be able to recreate it in this final game, but that's obviously a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. Funny, actually, even mentioning that, just thinking, no, I can't remember the Brewers stealing a base this series, or actually even attempting to. I could be wrong in that. Some of them happened pretty damn late for me, but the Cubs were very good in that coming in, as are the Brewers, in terms of preventing the sort of stolen bases. But it's interesting that one of the things the Brewers lead the baseball in terms of the stolen base numbers. I think they lead the NL, and then base runs value. Again, they're leading all of baseball, and it just hasn't seemed the Cubs haven't allowed that to have any sort of real impact. And it'll be interesting to see if they can manage that then. Now, when the pressure's on, you might find pitchers a little more dialed in just on home plate, and maybe there's an extra half step to be taken here and there. Even when you look at Durbin not taking a chance and sliding into home, things like that, people are going to make more mistakes because it's playoff baseball. Durbin didn't make the wrong choice. He didn't know what was going on behind him. Yeah. But it's just, do you just turn around and think, I'm going to go for this? Do you put on your little internal Randy or Rose Arena sort of and just think, I'm going to be a hero?
Yeah, I don't know if Caleb Durbin wanted to get CTE this early in his career. I don't know if the MLB health insurance plan is as good as the NFL's, but yeah, like so stuff like that. I wonder how much of the run game and stolen base plan has been limited by Carson Kelly, who's been pretty good at like limiting that traffic on the base paths to make sure guys just keep guys honest on first base. But yeah, like I don't know if their game plan is going to be like, hey, let's just do what we did in game one, or if it's like, hey, it's like turn everything up to 11. Like let's make this like a Little League game where everything is so chaotic, there's no structure, the pace is so constant, the pressure is so high, because the pressure's already high, right? Like the stakes cannot get any higher. It is winner take all, loser goes home and goes to Cancun and does what Ronald Acuna Jr. does, which is like posting all these vacation videos. I'm sure Braves fans are pretty mad about that, but like there's so much riding on this for Milwaukee, especially because of, I think it stings extra when you have the best regular season in franchise history with the most wins, and you get bounced in the same fashion, more or less, that you've been getting bounced in the past few years, which is like there's no depth to this run, right? And it's like so close yet so far. The result is the same. That's super heartbreaking for obviously the players, also for the fans. The Cubs, like, I don't want to speak for Cubs fans. They have their own kind of heartbreak to deal with because of how they kind of lost grip of the division. There's a bunch of other frustration behind the fandom of that. But, I think that they've played really well. They made it to the playoffs the first time in a while. They won their first home playoff game for the first time in a while. I think the Brewers, like, there's more at stake for them slightly, even though on paper, like, they're both going to, like, go home if they lose.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a general thing. You played a lot of sports yourself, Jason. When you're in any sort of knockout of anything, you just don't want to get knocked out in your first match. You just kind of want to get through that, and then you're like, okay, the worst thing that could happen is gone. I've got a little more freedom now. I think that has happened a little bit with the Cubs. The Brewers obviously haven't won a matchup since 2018, and that does lurk on them. It's a different set of players for the most part, but it still stings, and you still know about it. So it probably does mean more to the Brewers than it does to the Cubs in some ways. But I don't know, man. Like sometimes I just look at this and like I'm so excited for it. These are like the things I love that like as a fan you get to feel nervous. Like you get to
Yeah.
feel that elation or the sadness, but something's coming. I'm gonna be sitting there like rocking back and forth at like 4 o'clock in the morning, where I'm gonna be sitting there like unable to sleep, cracking open a bottle of whiskey and just thinking, "Let's go, lads." There's gonna be something going on.
Uh-huh. So,
But
would you
yeah,
rather just wake up and know the result, or do you want to
no.
you want to sit through it?
Yeah, and I do this. This is what I have to do every morning, Jason. Like I wake up in the morning sometimes to watch a game, and I like have a whole like eye shut. I know where to press on my phone, so I can literally watch a full game and just fast forward like 10 seconds at a time, just go pitch to pitch, so I can see what's actually happened. Because once you see the score, you're kind of like, ah, okay, good job.
So you
Whereas
like
when you,
anticipate?
yeah, you need to live with the ups and downs. You need to feel your way through it. Feel the
No, I don't.
anticipation.
I don't know, dude. So I play fantasy football. I do not watch football on Sundays because
Really?
I firmly believe that it's like a watched pot never boils. A watched fantasy lineup never wins. So I deliberately like I don't check until like the last game when everybody else has pretty much played. Um, and then it's like ripping off a band-aid or like getting waxed, right? Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's you can either have someone tweeze
I
every
wonder
individual
why your
hair.
face was so smooth, Jason. You just get your beard
Dude,
waxed. Is that
no,
it?
that's just it's smooth because I'm Chinese, bro. We don't really grow a lot of hair, to be honest with you. But like if if it was up to me, I think it'd be really sad to watch 9 innings of collapse. Like if
Yeah.
if you get homered on in the first inning, it's like, man, I gotta watch 8 more innings of this, knowing that like we may or may not come back. But right now, it's erring on the side of not. Or you get ahead real big and then you fold in the last minute, and it's like that sucks too. Or you come back, or you start winning and you kind of carry that dominance over. Like it's a 50-50 shot. I mean, I'm obviously gonna be watching, but if if someone were to ask me, would you rather just know or like live through it? I honestly think I probably have that's a harder decision for me than most folks.
I mean, part of you as well surely has to think. We've seen some big moments against the Brewers with the Trent Grisham error, the Freddie Freeman home run against Josh Hader. We had the Diamondbacks, Josh Donaldson, or sorry, who was playing third base for them? Evan Longoria
Longo,
somehow
baby.
decided he was 21 years old again with some of the plays he was making. And you were just like, surely it's got to end. Last year, Pete Alonso, that home
Yeah,
run.
dude.
Like, you're just thinking at some point, these moments, the Brewers deserve to be in the receiving end of one of those big moments where, all you can do is like scream the house down. Because it just goes like from 0 to 100. And
Yeah.
part of me thinks like the dam it just has to break at some point. And
Right.
I'm probably just being super optimistic, and I'm gonna touch wood the whole time. Okay. just so you know, I am literally touching wood. Okay. But like surely there's gotta be a big moment for the Brewers in here. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see that. I love like a crazy walk off or like a late inning. Like I love bottom of the eighth, go ahead homer by Caleb Durman. Ninth, you get whoever like your rebate closing out the ninth. It does a little pistol like smoke. Like that would be so sick to clinch the series. But I feel like reality is often disappointing, right? And so like ultimately we'll see. We'll see. I'm not gonna jinx it anymore. It's
Reality
Friday.
is
The
disappointing.
weekend's
Like,
coming.
dude, are you even gonna like? I'm gonna be up at 1 a.m. watching this. Are you actually going to watch this game? Please
Yeah,
tell me you
and it's
are.
at a reasonable time for me. It is at 2 p.m. Pacific. So,
Oh, I think
I,
it's later. They moved the time.
oh, sorry, 5 p.m.
It'd be
Pacific.
5 p.m.
I
now, I
got it
think.
mixed up. Yeah. Either way, reasonable time, not 2 a.m. So,
Okay, you're not gonna be napping or anything this time, then, no?
what do you mean? I only nap in like the fifth or sixth. If we're up by two,
Okay,
there's like a model. There's a Fangraphs model that I decide when it's okay to nap. By Dan Simborski.
that
But
makes sense.
to kind of start wrapping things up here, what are
Give me
you
1
looking
second
forward?
here, Jace. Might
Yeah, I
rub
got you.
something in. Tell you what,
Okay.
I should ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions, so go ahead and
Dude, go
ask.
get your Deliveroo. Go get your Deliveroo. Our viewers are waiting.
All right, hit me. What were you ask?
What did you get? A full English?
Oh, yeah, just need to plug something in. I'm like, I could chance this and hope that it doesn't run out in the 8% in time, but go ahead, hit me, big man.
Okay. I was gonna say last question here. What are you looking forward to most, or what's gonna keep you most on the edge of your seat if you had to point to one thing in this final game?
Um, Honestly, I mean, keeping on the edge of our seat isn't going to be an issue this whole game unless there starts to be a blowout one way or the other. Um, I think what's going to keep me maybe most fascinated is when Mizorowski, like it's that hell or high water sort of thing, you know. Which one are you getting, the Jekyll and Hyde? If he can somehow locate even remotely well, like that dude is going to light these boys up. If they chase at all, done. And under pressure, people are going to chase. So there is that potential. I'm going to be super on the edge of my seat. For some reason, I just think Ian Happ is going to do something again. That dude just seems to be a home wrecker for the Brewers.
Yeah.
So anytime he's up at the plate, I'm going to be nervous. Like, what for you, Jason? What's going to keep you awake?
I think for me, it's every at bat of those three guys that we brought up earlier, right? Frelick, Durbin, and Terang. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those guys are just too good to be slumping this much in a
Yeah.
moment this big. And I think that, I wrote an article last week, 2 weeks ago, about Durbin being the potential X factor, and I think like when he's on, the team's on, and when he's not, it's a little rough. And that's a third of the lineup. Those three guys is a third of the lineup, right? And so if they're locked in, that is a very good tailwind for the team. And so I'd love to. Those are three of my favorite players on this team. Isaac Collins, throw him in there too, but he hasn't been getting a lot of looks. But those three guys, like I think if they are able to rise to the occasion, I think the rest of the team will follow.
Yeah, no, I couldn't argue with that at all. I think you're spot on there, Jace.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that's all for today's discussion preview for the game tomorrow night. Hopefully, it's gonna be it's gonna lead to the NLCS, but we'll have to see. And that uncertainty is apparently what makes Jake such a big fan of baseball, but it just makes me stressed and anxious. So until then, we'll talk to you guys. See you, everybody.
Bye, guys.